So we will talk about Prema Bhakti. This is the highest, most best, most wonderful stage of love of God, of pure devotion. And congratulations to making it to this point in your reading. Of course, it's a long time before we actually reach the stage, but at least we can read about it. So this chapter is the fourth wave, devotion and pure love of God. It's the fourth wave of the Eastern Ocean, or Prema Bhakti. It is the last wave in the first ocean of the nectar of devotion. In this chapter, the definition and attainment of Prema Bhakti is described. The development of Prema is a gradual evolution beginning with Shraddha. This is when lust is completely transferred to the Supreme Godhead and the concept of kinship is completely reposed in Him, such is acceptance as pure love of God. So, when in the material world, there's only lust, which Prabhupada actually starts with this in the first paragraph of this chapter, that in this world there's only lust. It appears that people love each other. It appears that we're actually in it for one another. But at the very basic point, at the very basis, when push comes to shove, we see that everyone is in it for themselves. There's no real love in the spiritual, in the material world. The closest thing is the love of a mother for the child. That is closest to spiritual love because it's so selfless. But even that is not completely love. So when our lusty tendencies in this world, when they are completely transferred, and this is why bhakti is so nice, because love of God is not about giving up anything. It's about transforming it or focusing it on the Supreme Lord. When lust is completely transferred to the Supreme Godhead, and the concept of kinship is completely reposed in Him. So He is the closest friend, the dearest friend, the closest lover. Such is accepted as pure love of God. Such is accepted as pure love of God. Samyam mashrit nita svanto mamatva shayantika bhava sa eva sandratma buddhai prema nigatyate. When that bhava softens the heart completely, one becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord and becomes very much condensed and intensified. It is called prema, love of Godhead, by learned scholars. So when that bhava completely softens the heart, at the stage of bhava, the heart is soft, but it's not completely soft. One becomes endowed with a great feeling of possessiveness in relation to the Lord. So in this stage, as we will discuss further, we'll expand on this verse, the Lord is not just the object of worship for the devotee, but the devotee feels possessive towards the Lord. The devotee feels that the Lord is mine and becomes very much condensed and intensified. It is called prema, love of God, by learned scholars. So the definition of prema, great authorities like Bhishma have explained that love of Godhead means completely giving up all so-called love for any other person. According to Bhishma, love means reposing one's affection completely upon one person, withdrawing all affinities for any other person. So great authorities like Bhishma have explained that love of God means completely giving up all so-called love for any other person. This is why the stage of sannyas is actually so glorified in Vedic literature, because although we can
Hare Krishna,
have
Gopala.
everyone. Yes, can you? Yes, Hare Krishna.
Prabhu, sorry to interrupt your class. Prabhu, all of these slides that will be available for the recording also might have this, highlight on it. So
Yes.
will it be okay for a quick second? If you log out and log back in, I think it will go away.
Okay, I'll do that. Yes, Prabhu. Thank you. I don't know how to remove it. Okay.
No need to log out. I think if you
Oh.
just stop sharing and
Yes.
reshare, it might work.
Okay. Yes,
That's
Prabhu.
right. That's right. That's
Here we
right.
go. Yes. Perfect. All right. So everyone can see the slides again and there's no mark, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. So it's love for Krishna, pure love for Krishna it has to be singular. Love by definition means selfless and 100%. So love of Godhead must be singular. It can only be focused towards Krishna. It can only be focused towards the Supreme Person who's Krishna. So if there's any other object of love, then that's not pure love. And therefore, Bhishma Dev is saying that it is only for one person. Now, when we love the devotees of the Lord, then that love for the devotees is part of our love for Krishna. We love them because they are part and parcel of Krishna, because they're part of Krishna. We love them because of their connection to Krishna. And the same is true of our family. When we're devotees, then we love our family because of their connection with Krishna. This is why Queen Kunti, the Pandavas, they all had such loving relationships, and they were family relationships. They did relate with each other as brothers and sons or husbands or wife. They did relate, but that relationship, its only basis, its singular basis, it was their devotion and connection with Krishna. So when we become devotees, our family relationships become spiritual because they become focused on Krishna. The primary trait of prema, bhava sa eva sandratma. It is the intensified, fully mature state of bhava. When one's desire to love Krishna in one's particular relationship becomes intensified, this is known as pure love of Godhead. When one's desire to love Krishna in one's particular relationship becomes intensified, this is known as pure love of God. So we said Raganuga Bhakti, or spontaneous devotion, from Raganuga upwards is a devotion in a particular relationship with Krishna. When that relationship becomes intensified, then it becomes pure love of Godhead. Secondary traits of prema, samyam mashranita swanto. It completely softens the heart. Mamatva atishayankita. It is marked by highly possessive ownership of Sri Krishna. So these are the two secondary traits of prema. That the first trait, the main thing, is the intensification of bhava, of love. So love of God. And then as a result of that love, the heart becomes completely soft and there's a possessiveness of Sri Krishna. There's a possessiveness towards Sri Krishna. By the evolution of bhava, either bhava of Vaidhi Bhakti with an attachment to Krishna's majesty, or the bhava of Raganuga Bhakti with an attachment to Krishna's sweetness. So there's two paths to come to prema. One path is through Vaidhi Bhakti. So one can actually be, and this is very interesting actually, one can be on the stage of bhava, but still be on the stage of Vaidhi Bhakti. And this is the residents of Vaikuntha. This is their stage. Right? They're always cognizant of the Lord's majesty. And therefore their devotion is never completely spontaneous. There's always a sense of majesty there. Therefore it's not raganuga. Yet it can still be bhava. It can still be on the highest stage of ecstasy. And then from bhava to prema. So the residents of Vaikuntha Lok, they can be prema bhaktas, but they will not love Krishna in that spontaneous way, like Mother Yashoda, the gopis, and the residents of Vrindavan love Krishna. So then that's one route. Now the second route is that one can come to bhava as a result of spontaneous love for Krishna, with an attachment to Krishna's sweetness. So prema from regulative sadhana onwards. So this is the process. If you're going from the Vaidhi sadhana, the regulated sadhana, to bhava and then prema. So this is the path that does not involve raganuga. We do Vaidhi sadhana, then there's Vaidhi derived from bhava. So now this is also spontaneous in one sense, because it's derived from bhava, but it's still the regulated principles. And now Vaidhi is being said in the sense of majesty. So there's Vaidhi that's derived from bhava. It's still Vaidhi, but it's on a completely different level. So we are offering the incense and the lamps to Krishna, and we're offering it on the stage of sadhana. But the pure devotees of the Lord, they're also offering the same lamp and the chamar and the flower, but that is derived from bhava. And then we have Vaidhi influenced prema. So then the highest stage is when we're still doing the Vaidhi, but we're on the stage of prema, and that prema is so wonderful, it is so beautiful. So we have Raganuga sadhana, Raganuga derived from bhava, and Raga influenced prema. So these are the different stages. If we take the Raganuga path, we go from Vaidhi to Raganuga, and then we're still doing Raganuga, but it is on the level of bhava. So basically it's bhava bhakti. And then we have Raga, that same spontaneous love that is influenced with prema. The two paths. So these are the two types of prema. These are the two types of prema, and their names are, here I have it. There's a Vaidha Bhavotta. This is prema arising from bhava, achieved through Vaidhi sadhana. And Raga Nugiya Bhavotta. This is in your Waves of Devotion study guide, which I've shared with all of you, but I'll share it here also. So, sorry, where do we go here? Okay. Put this in the chat. Okay, the fonts are not coming, right? But anyway, it's in your study guide. So an example of Raganuga sadhana that leads to prema. Srila Prabhupada gives this in this chapter. In the Padma Purana, it's described that Chandrakanti, a celebrated fair-faced girl, rigidly observed celibacy in order to obtain Krishna as her husband. She always engaged herself in meditating on the transcendental form of the Lord, and always chanted the glories of the Lord. She did not desire to accept anyone else as her husband. She had firmly decided that only Lord Krishna would be her husband. So this is a case of Raganuga where she saw Krishna as her husband. So this is the Swakiya Ras, where she is seeing Krishna as her husband. And therefore she took the solemn vow that I will not marry anyone else other than Krishna. And then she was able to have Krishna as her husband. So from Raganuga sadhana, she went all the way to Prema Bhakti. And Prabhupada and Rupa Goswami, they give this as an example. So this is the path of Raganuga leading to Prema. Then there's a third way we can get Prema, as always. There's always that caveat. So we can get it through Vaidhi sadhana, we can get it through Raganuga sadhana, and we can also get it through the mercy of the Lord. But Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and that's what we are hoping for. While it's rare to attain Prema by mercy only, in essence, all Prema is achieved through mercy. For the purpose of sadhana is to attract Krishna and the Vaishnava's mercy. So the point is that anyone who is loving Krishna, who is serving Krishna, they are serving him, not because they feel that through that service they can actually reach the Lord. They cannot reach the Lord simply by performing some service. But the purpose of the service is that Krishna might notice me, and then the Vaishnavas might notice me, and then I may get their mercy and then attain that stage. So prema, by definition, can only be achieved through mercy. It is just a fact that there's nothing that we can do by which we can earn pure love for God. But we do so that the Lord may become merciful and we can get this love of God. Now, this prema is always achieved through mercy, but sometimes a devotee may achieve it through mercy alone, and that is very, very rare, without making the effort, right? But also, the main thing that has to be said here is that there's a combination always of action and mercy. And in Lord Chaitanya's movement, the mercy part increases and the action part decreases. The requirement or the action part, that decreases. So that mercy is most available at this time because of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda. That mercy is very special. So prema from mercy with mood of reverence. Vaidhi sadhana, and then mercy, and then Aishwarya prema. So if we are initially starting with some reverence towards the Lord, and we stay in that reverence, we are not in, let's say, Lord Chaitanya's movement, we're maybe in the Ramanuja Sampradaya, Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya, then we will do Vaidhi sadhana, and as a result of that sadhana, get mercy. And as a result of that mercy and sadhana, we get Aishwarya prema. Pure love for God in the mood of Aishwarya, in the mood of majesty. In the Narad Pancharatra, it is said that if on account of profound veneration for the greatness of the Supreme Lord, one attains a great affection and steady love for him, one is certainly assured of attaining the 4 kinds of liberation. So by due to that profound veneration, if one attains this pure love, then one gets the 4 kinds of liberation. So there's 5 kinds of liberation. The 5th one is to merge into the Lord. So in that liberation, prema is not possible. But the other 4 are svarupya, having the same form as the Lord, salokya, having the same abode as the Lord, samipya is, I think, having the same opulence as the Lord, and sarshti, so the same planet, same form, same opulences, and there's a 4th one. Anyone remember the 4th one?
Samipya is to be.
Sayujya.
The Sayujya is the 5th one.
To be on the
same planet. To be on the same planet.
Is it Sanidhya, Prabhuji?
So we have the same planet, the same form, the same opulences.
That is Samipya, which is to stay close to the Lord.
And Samipya, which is to stay close to the Lord. Okay, very nice. Thank you very much, Prabhu. So these are the 4 types of liberation that we can get on account of prema in Vaidhi sadhana bhakti. And these are all in on reverence. So one will be close to the Lord, his servant, one will have the same form, one will be in the same planet, one will have the same opulences, but they are not in that spontaneous mood, that spontaneous method. So we have then the Raganuga sadhana, and Raganuga sadhana turns into Kevala prema. And this is prema that is Kevala. Kevala means Kevala literally just means one-pointed, fully focused. And in this context, it refers to spontaneous prema as well. So this is the second path, prema from mercy with the mood of intimacy. So example with spontaneous love, Srimad Bhagavatam 11:12-7. The gopis in Vrindavan did not study the Vedas to achieve me, nor had they even been in holy places of pilgrimage, nor did they devoutly execute any regulated principle, nor did they undergo any kind of austerity. It is simply by my association that they have attained the highest perfection of devotional service.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna,
Yes.
sorry for this question, but I thought they had mentioned that these gopis were in their last life the rishis of Naimisharanya who had performed many austerities. So isn't this contradictory?
No, it's not, because they had performed austerities, but they were performing those austerities and they were doing that devotional service in a particular mood. And their mood was one of aparikiyaras. They wanted the Lord as their husband. Or maybe they performed the austerities like that. They did Vaidhi sadhana perfectly. But because their eternal Swarupa was one of gopis, when they saw Lord Ramachandra, their bhava, their raga of wanting to love Krishna in the mood of the gopis, that became manifest. Yes. So this verse is saying the gopis in Vrindavan did not study the Vedas to achieve me, nor had they even been in holy places of pilgrimage, nor did they devoutly execute any regulated principle, nor did they undergo any kind of austerity. It is simply by my association that they have attained the highest perfection of devotional service. So the sages were performing austerities. They had perfected their Vaidhi sadhana, and then they saw Lord Ramachandra. They had those feelings, but then they were not on that stage of ecstatic love per se, right? So then when they come back as gopis, then they're not doing all these things. They're just due to the association of the Lord. But to get the association, we have to do all these things. So it is maybe a little bit contradictory in the sense of externally. Apparently, it is contradictory, but this is a fact. Their austerities did not bring them to the point of the highest perfection. That just brought them to the point of having the Lord's association. And then once they had the association, then due to their raga, their love for Krishna, they came to that stage.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Hari. So then there's a general progression from faith to love. The beginning of ecstatic love of Godhead is basically faith. There are many societies and associations of pure devotees, and if someone with just a little faith begins to associate with such societies, his advancement to pure devotional service is rapid. So one of the key things is association, right? It is through association that we reach the stage of prema. More so, as we advance more and more, the association becomes more and more important, because this is not really on the mechanical level. This is a matter of the heart, and even in the Krishna book, in the Bhagavatam, it says that when the sadhana siddha gopis, when they associated with the nitya siddha gopis, then by that association of the nitya siddha gopis, they developed the proper mood and attitude to be able to dance with Krishna. So like when Krishna calls the gopis by playing on his flute, he invites the gopis to come. Then at that point, not all the gopis are able to go. As you know, the story of the Rasa Leela, some of them are able to escape, but others are not. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains that why some gopis were able to go and others were not. Because some of the gopis were already liberated, they were able to go. Other gopis, they had the association of these Nitya Siddha gopis, Radharani and the others, and so therefore they're able to go. And the gopis that were not able to go, they had neither received the association, nor were they Nitya Siddhas, that direct association, obviously that association of all the pure devotees. Whole Vrindavan is full of pure devotees, and they themselves are pure devotees. But to get that proper mood, to get that, even within pure devotee, there's different levels, as we've been discussing. to get that perfect, fully purified body. They had not reached that. So then by staying home in love for separation, their body became fully purified, their heart became fully purified. All their by that separation, their physical body burned, and what was left is only their spiritual body. So there's a general progression from faith to love. So the general progression from faith to love is follow the principles of devotional service under the guidance of the pure devotee and accept him as a spiritual master. So this is where it starts. We now are going, we've come to the point of prema. So all the way from Shraddha to prema. So first is Shraddha. We have some faith in a pure devotee. We want to follow the pure devotee. And then we follow the principles of devotional service under the guidance of that pure devotee and accept that pure devotee as our spiritual master. And then there's a general progression from faith to love. As a result of such activities, he becomes freed from all unwanted occupations. When he is freed from unwanted occupations, his faith becomes steady. So first is to do the regulated principles. And then once we do the regulated principles, then anartha nivritti. All the unwanted things within our heart. Krishna arranges our life in such a way that everything that is unwanted in our heart has to go. So the Lord, he has his way of purifying us by giving us very difficult situations in our spiritual life and in our life in general, so that we let go of the different attachments that we have, the different anarthas that we have. And people oftentimes, they ask this question, they say, how will I get purified? What is the path of purification? Well, just engage in the devotional service of the Lord, and then don't worry, we will have to get purified. Krishna will arrange a situation where we will have to surrender if we want to continue practicing devotional service. So then there's a general progression from faith. So then he develops a transcendental taste for devotional service, then attachment, then ecstasies, and in the last stage, there's love of Godhead. So taste for devotional service, then attachment to that devotional service, then the feeling of ecstasies while performing the devotional service, and the last stage is prema, pure love of Godhead. So once again, this is the process that all of you are preparing for your exam, right? There's Shraddha. Then with Shraddha, there's Sadhu Sangha. When you have faith, you have some faith, then you want to associate with the devotees. You're associating with the devotees, Sadhu Sangha. Then there's Bhajana Kriya, which is the worship, the regulated performance of the regulated principles of devotional service. Then there's Anartha Nivritti, or the purification of our anarthas. When we worship the Lord, then Krishna arranges Nashtra Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya. All that is abhadra, that is unwanted in our heart, becomes removed. Then there's Nishtha, which is firm faith. There's Ruchi, which is taste. Asakti, which is further taste, condensed taste, great attachment to the Lord. Then there's Bhava, which is what we discussed. And from Bhava, in one of these four rasas, we get prema. And if it's in Dasya ras, then it's it is the Aishwarya prema. If it's in any of the other three, then it's Kevala prema. It is in the spontaneous prema. So this is very nice. This is the whole thing right here. You can see all the different stages. This is the creeper of devotion, going from Shraddha all the way to prema.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, would it be possible for you to share that graphics with us in WhatsApp?
Yes, I will do that. Yes.
Thank you. It's very beautiful.
Yes, it is, isn't it? Thank you. Yes. Very beautiful one. So this is the overview. now, if we kind of break that down, so there's different different even sub stages within these stages, right? So the as far as the experience or the taste goes, Prabhupada gives the example of a mango. So that when the mango is raw, it is bitter mango. Right? You eat a raw mango, it's very bitter. So bhakti initially is very bitter. We have to, do so many austerities and we don't feel like it. We want to go to the movies and we want to do this and that. But just give it some time, keep doing devotional service. It will, from bitter mango, it will become bitter sour. And then it's sour. So sour is less bad than bitter, right? So it becomes sour. Still, there's some niceties, but some bad taste in our mouth or whatnot. At the stage of anartha nivritti, it's a very difficult stage. When Krishna purifies our anarthas, he puts us through a lot of difficulties, a lot of challenges, and spiritual life is very hard. So then we go from that sour stage to then the sour sweet stage. Then the mango becomes sweetened. And then at the stage of ruchi, at the stage of nishta, we're sour sweet. At the stage of ruchi and asakti, it becomes sweet, very sweet. Devotional service is like the best time of our day. Everything else is sour. Devotional service is very sweet. So some of us may be experiencing that. So that is a stage of nishta. But in our devotional service also, we face some problems. We feel there's some problems. So it's also sour at times. But then when we really advance, there's no problems. There's only sweetness. And we come to this point of sweetness. In the Bhava Bhakti stage, it is even sweeter. And then finally, Prema Bhakti, it's condensed sweetness. The mango is fully, fully ripe. So it all comes from surrender and association with the devotees. And it goes all the way up to Prema Bhakti. Okay, so this is what I have. This is the final chapter. I'm once again very sorry to keep you waiting for half an hour. Thank you all for staying. I'm so grateful that you stayed and waited 30 minutes. So if there's any questions or comments, clarifications wanted, then I can do that now. Yes, Pushpanjali Mataji.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for teaching in spite of emergency. Prabhuji, questions about the exam.
You're cutting out a little bit, Mataji. Just making it.
I will just wait.
No, now you're muted. So just unmute yourself.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's a little better. Yes.
Okay. Prabhuji, I have a question about the exam. You said there are a lot of technical terms like Kleshagni, Samudkanta and all that. You said you will give us a list of the terms that we need to know for the exam. Yes. And the second question is like, are we going to have like short answer questions from all the homework questions, or because we have to memorize all the things? And I mean, are the short answer questions going to come from like a small bank or like?
No. So the questions will, except for the essay question and the verses, everything will be multiple choice or fill in the blank. So I'll take the homework question and I'll maybe make it into a multiple choice question or the fill in the blank. So even in terms of the terms, if you know the homework and the terms that were present in the homework, then you're fine. So I that's why although I mentioned that I didn't do it, I forgot to do it, is because it's really not necessary. Just go over all the homework questions, study those well. And if you know the answers to those, then I will sort of reincarnate that question into a multiple choice question or a fill in the blank question, and then I'll give it.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji.
Thank you, Mati.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Any other questions? Yes, the essay question is specific. As I mentioned to you, the essay question needs to be a summary of the stages of bhakti. So I talked about that today also. It needs to be a summary of the stages of bhakti. And I will share this slide or diagram with you. So this way you have it. and then you need to identify all the different stages, which and the different whatever is in the nectar devotion. Now there's other books also, like the Madhurya Kandamani, that further divide these stages into further stages. So that don't do in your essay, just what you studied in the nectar devotion. And there's no one right answer. What I'm looking for in the essay question is just understanding that, okay, obviously you understand this, you have read it well, and you're explaining it. You only have 150 words to do this. So I'm not looking for anything very detailed either. I'm just looking for a nice, straightforward answer on the different stages of bhakti, starting from Vaidhi sadhana, raga nuga, and then there's bhava and prema. So like this, identify the different stages and what are some of the characteristics of reaching those stages, like that. Okay, Brandy.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
When you reviewed the definition of prema as deserting all other love than love for Krishna, I would like clarification on this, because aren't we taught as well that we are supposed to love everyone and see everyone as part and parcel of Krishna and love them in that way? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for that nice question.
Just want to add on the same thing, Prabhu. Like, because we read on the same note that when we were talking about Jnana and Vairagya also, we talked about this aspect that at least we have to have that kind of compassionate heart, right? Yes. So again, we are rejecting other love. Yes, Prabhu.
Yes. No, thank you again. So the devotee is 100% convinced of the Lord's presence, right? The devotee knows that this is the slide that we're referring to, but the devotee knows, that Krishna is present in every blade of grass. So I had this question myself for a long time, is that if Krishna knows that, and Krishna is all powerful, then why is it that we go and preach? Why is it that we show compassion to others? Because we know that Krishna is fully in control, and Krishna, if he wants, he can send 1,000 devotees from the spiritual world, eternally liberated devotees, and liberate all of us. So actually, this is true. In other words, we don't have any really position. We don't even have the place, or you could say the platform to love Krishna, to show compassion, to the fallen souls. I mean, who are we to show compassion? But we show compassion to the fallen souls, and truly from within our heart, because we know that Krishna wants us to do this. Krishna desires this. And so on behalf of Lord Krishna, the devotee is engaging in this work. But some devotees do not, like the Bhajanandis. They know Krishna is in control. Krishna will take care. But Prabhupada explains that those are special circumstances, because why? Why are those devotees who also don't preach also pure devotees? The pure devotees one that I'm mentioning, like let's say Gaur Kishore Das Babaji, where he was sitting in one place just chanting the holy name for day after day after day, because the Lord has given them a different instruction. And so because the Lord has given them a different instruction, they're fulfilling that instruction. And this is the proof, therefore, that their compassion does not supersede the Lord's instruction. Ultimately, the Lord's instruction is the topmost. So Prabhupada says in many places, he says that preaching is so important. He says, preaching is what gives us love for God. Preaching is what gives us the attention of the Lord, the mercy of the Lord. So preaching is so important. But this preaching, even that is being done by the desire of the Lord, the will of the Lord. Because the devotees of the Lord who are instructed otherwise will not engage in that work. Because we're not saying that we're more intelligent or more capable than the Lord. In the same way, our loving relationships with everyone, it's so many verses are there that the devotee loves everyone. The devotee has no enemy, because the devotee is seeing everyone as part and parcel of Krishna. So their expression of love to anyone is their expression of love to Krishna, because this person is a part of Krishna, and they're seeing that love is still there, just like a material person, but the love is not on the material level. That, oh, this person is connected with me, therefore I love this person. And this person is not connected with me, therefore I don't love them. But why is the devotee's love unalloyed and selfless and all these things? Because he loves based upon people's connection with Krishna. Okay, this person is not connected with me, that's okay, but I still love them. Like Prabhupada in one place says that sannyas doesn't mean having no family, but sannyas means making the entire world your family. And sannyas means making the entire world your own family. So, so this is the thing. So the devotee is the most loving person, but it's not based upon the body or upon material estimations or relationships. And this is a very high level. Again, we cannot artificially follow this. This is the level of prema, right? So like Shukadev Goswami, all these great souls on that level, where they will love based upon the fact that, oh, this is the Lord, because it's the energy, it's a part and parcel of the Lord. And so I show them affection, but it's in connection with Krishna. So if Krishna tells them not to show affection or tells them to do something else, then they will do that, because they're not showing love based upon their own estimations or desires or plans.
Thank you, Prabhu. That was very beautiful about sannyas, making the whole world our family, and it makes sense, your answer with Mahaprabhu's direction that he gave us. So thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Yes, it was a very nice question. Thank you. Okay, any other questions? Ambika Mataji, yes.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji, thank you
Hare
for the
Krishna.
wonderful class. So we talked about that, prema derived with the mood of Aishwarya Bhava. And actually, in fact, in our Bhakti Ruksha, we were discussing this topic yesterday. We're reading a book named called Rivers of Wisdom. It's written by His Holiness Radhanath Swami. And there is a chapter called Krishna's Reciprocation. So this book, I don't know if, most of you probably are aware of, but it's in a set of question answers. So, devotees have asked questions and Maharaj has given the answers. So one of the question was related, what kind of relationship or the bhava or the mood that Queen Kunti has with Lord Krishna. And Maharaj explained that, she's, worshipping, or the mood that she has with Krishna is the Aishwarya Rasha. Even though, she's Krishna's aunt, she's not in that spontaneous love with Krishna. It's not... that Vasalya Bhav. She has the Aishwarya Bhav because she completely is aware that, he's Supreme Personality of Godhead. She has that, understanding, that knowledge. So I was just trying to, speculate a little bit more and understand. So I think, so Queen Kunti, I assume that had probably, in her previous life, maybe followed the Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti, I guess, and that's why she was in that Aishwarya Bhava with Krishna instead of, that spontaneous relationship, even though she was right there with Krishna. So is that how we should understand?
Yes, so this pure sort of raga nuga bhakti, that's why actually it's a fact. The real intimate mood, it only exists in Vrindavan. Because every place outside of Vrindavan, Krishna's Aishwarya is really focused on. And when he's the king of Dwarka, he's still the king, he takes the role of king. Lord Balaram doesn't, but there he is the king. And at the battle of Kurukshetra, Krishna's doing all these mystical things. Everyone knows he's God, how is it possible? He does so many wonderful things. So like in the case of Queen Kunti, I would say that her Vatsalya is mixed with Aishwarya, or her Aishwarya is mixed with Vatsalya. So this also happens where the devotee is still in that mood, but there's Aishwarya, they're still cognizant of that. Because Lord Krishna does come and touch her feet. Right? He does come and offer respects to her. So why? Because the mood is one of Vatsalya also, and she accepts that. If she was only in Aishwarya, she would be just like, like shaking in front of Krishna, like, don't touch my feet. So there's more of a mixture, and therefore it is not as intimate or spontaneous as the residents of Vrindavan. Now, in terms of the past, I mean, it's quite possible that Queen Kunti, the one that we know about, she is a Nitya Siddha, that she never came to the material world. So her relationship with Krishna has always been the way that it is. And this is just her eternal role. Because Prabhupada mentions this in one purport. He says that the Pandavas and Queen Kunti, they travel from universe to universe with the Lord, being involved or engaging in the pastimes of the Lord. Yes. So,
Okay. Okay,
yes.
Prabhu. Thank you for the explanation. So, Prabhu, can we talk about few examples, from the devotees who had followed the path of Vaidhi sadhana bhakti and attained, the prema through Vaidhi bhakti versus, prema bhakti, we always we talk about gopis. The example is, the best example is gopis. But what about any examples from Vaidhi sadhana bhakti to prema?
I think an example is, for example, Prahlad Maharaj. So Prahlad Maharaj, Prabhupada mentions in some places that actually he's even in Shantaras primarily, not even Dasyaras. But he's clearly a Prema Bhakta. And Dasya has to be there because he's glorifying the Lord Majesty. But we don't see him in any specific mood or rasa. So there's reverence, there's awe, there's also service. And so he's going apparently, maybe he's Nitya Siddha and just doing a pastime, but if not, then he's going apparently from the stage of Vaidhi to the stage of Vaidhi Prema. And also he's a case, actually, Prabhupada mentioned this, he's a case of just mercy, the third category, that reaching Prema simply through mercy. But if he did do something, it was more Vaidhi, it wasn't, bhakti in the mood of the gopis. So he is a very nice example. The residents of Vaikuntha, they're all nice examples. Dhruva Maharaj is a very nice example. Dhruva Maharaj is someone on that level. And in that way, he performed Vaidhi sadhana under the direction of Narad Muni. And then and then after that, when he goes to the spiritual abode, he's going to Vaikuntha. But before he goes, it's described how tears are streaming down his eyes, his body is shaking, he's experiencing the characteristics of prema. Yes.
And what about Srila Prabhupada?
Srila Prabhupada, we don't know. And Prabhupada himself said that we won't know. Although we know of all the devotees, we don't know what his Swarupa is. And we know that he's a Nitya Siddha. So really this whole thing about reaching prema doesn't apply to him because he came from the spiritual world. Okay. Prabhupada didn't tell us who he is, but he said that if I told you, you would faint. So he's someone very important, very central in the spiritual world. But we don't know who he is.
Okay. Thank you, Prabhuji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you, Mataji. Sham Kishori Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much, Dandavat Pranam. Thank you for the wonderful class. Sorry, I'm not able to come on camera.
That's okay. Yes.
Yes, Prabhuji. So you mentioned that there are two types of prema. One is Aishwarya prema, and you gave the example of, maybe Sri Vaishnavas who can reach that prema, Aishwarya prema. And then, the Raga Nuga, which is Kevala prema. So are these both at the same level? Are they both equal? Because as Gaudiya Vaishnava followers of Rupa Goswami, we aspire to reach Kevala prema. So is it okay to aspire for Aishwarya prema, or is Kevala prema the highest?
So it's a similar situation, like we say that among the five rasas, Madhurya rasa is the highest. But at the same time, Prabhupada says that they are all the best. We cannot say that Mother Yashoda is less advanced than the gopis. So it has to do with the degree of intimacy. And because Kevala Prema is more intimate in Gaudiya Vaishnava philosophy, we aspire for that. But they're all the best. They're all the best. They're all on the equal level. And there's some discussion or controversy on this issue. Many devotees say that our Swarupa cannot change. So if we are in Aishwarya, even in Lord Chaitanya's movement, when we make advancement, we will have that same Swarupa or if our role is a servant in the spiritual world, we will realize that. And we won't become all of a sudden a gopi, because that's not who we are. So that may be true. Another group says that no, that the reason why we come in Lord Chaitanya's mercy, and for example, aren't born in South India as a Sri Vaishnava Brahmana, is because we actually are in this mood of Madhurya Ras. And therefore, Krishna's put us in touch with Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement, and we all will be in Madhurya Ras if we're practicing in this movement. And if we are meant to be in Dasras, we would be born in a place where we would contact Sri Vaishnavism or maybe Christianity, Islam. It's all in Dasras, God the Father, and we'd reach perfection that way. Yet a third group says that no, we can be in the service mood, realize our Swarupa, but then that's Dasras can be with the knowledge of Krishna's prema, his love for Krishna, his spontaneous love for Krishna. It can be go along with that knowledge. So one can still be or appreciate Madhurya Ras, but be in Dasiras. So one is doing Dasiras, but appreciating the Madhurya Rasa of Krishna and the gopis. So honestly speaking, we really just don't know. In terms of the spiritual world, it's really Krishna's, it's Krishna's internal energy, it's Krishna's own, it's a very personal thing with Krishna. And so we really don't know that, are we going to end up in Aishvarya or Kevala, and why we end up in one or the other. But all we do know is that whatever position we're in, we will be happiest there. Because just like if someone's a mother, then she, in a normal state of consciousness, she will not be happy to be the father because she enjoys being the mother. I mean, that is what is natural to her. So in the same way, we wouldn't want anything else because that is what is natural to us. And so Krishna makes sure, Krishna, the natural thing about the spiritual world is that everyone is absorbing unlimited spiritual happiness, which means that all levels are equal. Aishwarya Bhav, Aishwarya Prema, Kevala Prema are both equal. They're all perfection, but it's just a matter of intimacy. Now, of course, we do want to go to Golok Dham. We don't want to be in Vaikuntha. So that much the devotee does specifically want. Ultimately, just wants to be a servant of the Lord, servant of the servant, but serving in the mood of Golok Vrindavan. But again, I talked to very advanced devotees, very, very advanced devotees in our movement, and they feel that their rasa in the spiritual world is in Ram Leela. They're a monkey in Lord Ramachandra's army. So even that, we can even end up in Saket, Lord Ram's abode, which is one of the Vaikuntha planets. It's not part of Goloka. But we should aspire right now for the mood of the gopis, because that is Lord Chaitanya's mercy. But if the Lord reveals something different or desires something different for us, it will be because this is what actually we want, and this is actually who we are in the spiritual world.
Thank you, Prabhuji. This is very helpful. Hare Krishna. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Okay. So Govinda Gopal Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
As usual, beautiful classes, very enlightening. Thank you for giving your time in these wonderful classes. I had a couple of questions and rather clarifications also. At one point you mentioned the gopis in the bhav of Vedi Bhakti may not have the same kind of spontaneous love that Mother Yashoda has. So it just reminded me at another class you also mentioned that all these gopis are like not all of them are at the same level. Some are Nitya Siddha, some are they elevated to that level, and they might be one of us from this material world elevated to that level. So all kind of mixes are there. So I'm just looking for a little bit explanation, clarification, how that thing really happens.
Right. Yes. So Srila Prabhupada describes that once we come to the level of prema and we realize our eternal swarupa, then in the case of Krishna Leela, so not in the case of Vaikuntha, but in the case of Krishna Leela, we first go to a place in the material world to help Krishna in his pastimes there. So we first travel to a place in the material world for our residency, our orientation. At that point, we may not be completely purified. There may be still some ambience or something like this. So this explanation that's given by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, that some of the gopis, they became fully purified by association with Nitya Siddha gopis. This applies only to the pastimes of the Lord that happens in the material world. That is, that devotee is first birth in Krishna's pastime, so to say. But then once you go to the spiritual world, then there's no higher low. Sadhana Siddha means Nitya Siddha, Nitya Siddha means Sadhana Siddha.
Thank you, Prabhu. There's one more, if I have permission. May I?
Yes, yes.
So there was one of the, I'm just slipping the name, one of the Prabhupada disciple, he mentioned that, let me be a stone in the service
Yes.
of Krishna. I'm just forgetting that.
Yes, Bhakti Tirtha Swami said
Bhakti
that.
Tirtha Maharaj, yeah. So yeah, he said that, let me be the stone. And then we hear the beautiful bhajans from Bhakti Vinod Thakur that he's desiring to be the blade of grass. And is it? Yeah. So no, actually the insect in the stool of the devotees, kind of.
Yes.
So well, my point here is the rasa, like many of us, I'm just speaking for myself. So we desire for like maybe I should be practicing the Madhurya Bhav or this the different level, because Madhurya is the topmost. That's what I should practice. But isn't it a mistake on our part to choose by ourselves that let me practice this bhav? Rather, it should be something given as an instruction from the spiritual master. And Prabhupada, being the Siksha Guru for everyone, he said that you don't know anything, just practice Dasabhav.
Yes. So these expressions are just the expressions of humility in a devotee. And so that is what the way that the devotee always feels. And we also have to remember that we assume that maybe the stone in the spiritual world is Shantaras. But there's no surety. I mean, a stone could also be in Dasiras, serving as in a particular way, or maybe we could have multiple forms in the spiritual world. So Prabhupada once said, he said that we should never try to understand the mind of a pure devotee. So why the pure devotee is saying we don't know? He might be saying out of immense humility, or maybe this is one of his rasas with Krishna. We have examples of devotees in the spiritual world who have multiple rasas with Krishna. So this is why they say things like this. It's the exhibition of their humility. It doesn't mean that Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, the Lord fulfilled his desire and he became a stone in Vrindavan. He could be anyone, a cowherd boy, or one of the manjaris, or anyone in the spiritual world. But that realization, only the devotee knows.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Nice question. Vivek?
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much for all the realizations that you are sharing, Prabhuji. Especially the one you told about Prabhupada, it kind of pierced the heart when you told that you will faint if you know my spiritual position. How Srila Prabhupada reacted. That was really penetrating, Prabhuji. Prabhuji, one question I always had was that I mean, especially in Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, we always stress upon regulated practice first for all of us who are practicing bhakti. But this question I always had in mind is, say, there are some other sampradayas, they don't really stress. Sometimes ISKCON is being criticized also for having Vaidhi as the practice of sadhana bhakti in the beginning. Of course, they don't really understand the meaning behind it. But I always have the question is that why is that in some sampradayas Vaidhi is not being actually being stressed upon, because Vaidhi is actually bringing out all our bad tendencies within the heart, and it's helping the devotee to cleanse. But it's not really happening in, say, I don't want to name any sampradayas, but I'm just trying to understand, Prabhuji, because without the help of this process, you gave some examples of some extreme cases where devotees directly practice Raganuga Bhakti, but those are all extreme cases.
Yes.
But I'm just trying to get my head around, because I always had this question as that how is that without practicing regulated form of devotional service one can directly perform Raganuga Bhakti?
Yes. So I mean, that is just like without getting the training and the skills and doing the drills of playing tennis, one cannot just so spontaneously, like you see these tennis pros, hit the ball in the tennis court back and forth. It's logically not possible. We become spontaneous at something when we have practice of doing it in a regulated way. So in the same way, devotional services like this, that we simply will not be able to love Krishna spontaneously unless we have some practice, unless we have some purification, unless the heart is cleansed. Now, there are some examples, and when that happens, there's two things that we can understand. One is that they got a very intense mercy of the Lord or of the devotee, and therefore they were raised to that platform through mercy, or they practiced this in their last life. And so therefore in this life, they're starting on the platform of Raganuga. And generally speaking, it's the second case. Like these unique cases that I described, they had done Vaidhi sadhana in their previous lives. And that's why they could come to the spontaneous level. Even the example of the rishis and the gopis who become gopis is very apt. That the gopis, they're born in Vrindavan, as the verse is saying, that they're not performing any Vedic sacrifices, no regulated principles, and they have this spontaneous attraction for Krishna. Well, why? Because in their previous life, they were sages, and they did all the Vaidhi sadhana. So it is not possible to have those feelings, to be able to love Krishna in a spontaneous way, unless we have done Vaidhi sadhana.
Okay, Prabhuji. So just to get my understanding correct, so it is good to have an understanding that at least if we see some other sampradayas practicing Raganuga directly, then at least we have to take a humble understanding from our side that I am not purified yet, so let me practice Vaidhi sadhana and let them practice whatever they have been advised to practice. Is that a good understanding? So that otherwise mind is so disturbed that I get confused sometimes with all these situations.
Yes. Yes. So, yes, they must have practiced Vaidhi sadhana to get to Raganuga. Prabhupada is also very clear on this. Like I said, someone may be on the level due to mercy, but that is a very rare case. And even there, on the level of Raganuga, they're still performing Vaidhi sadhana. They're just doing it spontaneously. You see, so even the pure devotee of the Lord is doing sadhana. Prabhupada was doing sadhana. He was chanting his 16 rounds. He would go for Mangalarti. He was attending Bhagavatam class. But those same activities are on the spontaneous level. So due to mercy or past lives, it will be done with a better feeling, a better mood. But the activities will still be the same. The internal realization will be greater, but the activity will be the same.
Thank you, Prabhuji. I hope I didn't put my questions in a different way. That
No, this is very nice. Yeah, nice clarification.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Madhava Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji. Dhanavad Pranam. Prabhupada. Thank you for the wonderful talk. So Prabhuji, I'll try to put this question forth in a clear manner. So you explained, right, there's Bhava from Vedic Bhakti and Bhava from Raganuga Bhakti. So for me right now, obviously, I'm a sadhana bhakta trying to follow the 4 regs and, just doing my sadhana every day. So from Vedic Bhakti, we can get that bhav, like that Aishwarya bhav, right? But then also in Gaudiya Parampara, from sadhana, Vedic sadhana bhakti, the program is designed in such a way where it's not ordinary Vedic Bhakti. It goes through the sadhana bhakti. So wouldn't it make sense if, because I know that you mentioned in one of the previous classes that naturally we will get a spontaneous attraction to serve, Krishna in one of the five rasas and such. But wouldn't it make sense if we have to kind of make some extra endeavor to actually cultivate that bhav, or go read Krishna pastimes or think of Krishna in that way? Because right now we see Radha Krishna as Lakshmi Narayan in one sense. We see them as, servant and master. So I don't know. My question is like, how do we check if we're developing bhava in, from Vedi sadhana bhakti, or if our goal is, bhava from Raganuga? Is my question clear?
Yes, it is. It's very clear. And thank you for that reminder that in our ISKCON movement, even the Vaidhi sadhana is done with Raganuga in mind, or it is a sort of a Raganuga Vaidhi sadhana. And see, that's why I mentioned actually that Prabhupada, that's why says that there's no exception for anyone. Because if we are a pure devotee, we have no reason not to follow the regulated principles. If we're a pure devotee, why won't we do it? It will be so easy for us. We definitely do it, and the pure devotees do it. And in the Gita, it says that even the great souls follow the rules and regulations simply to set an example for others. So the activity doesn't change. The activities in terms of us, that the acharyas have given us are Raganuga activities that we're doing in Vaidhi, in regulation. So the activities don't change. It's the feeling in the heart that changes. It's the mentality with which we are doing the activity that changes. So that is what progresses from Vaidhi to Raganuga to Bhava to Prema. And of course, on the level of Prema, we may become like an avadhut, and therefore we don't do anything. We're just always absorbed in love of God. We're feeling ecstasy all the time. But right now, if we're honest with ourselves, we are far, far away from that. So therefore, we cannot really imitate or relate with something like that. So for now, even if we are aiming towards bhava, the way to do it is to do our Vaidhi sadhana bhakti, our service to the Lord, our hearing, chanting, our service, to do it really well, and to see how is my feeling, how is my motivation and my desires towards the Lord progressing as I do this sadhana. So it's the evolution of consciousness, not really an evolution of activity.
Okay, thank you, Prabhu. Because I also know that I think in the Laghu Bhagavatamrita or Brihad Bhagavatamrita, it's mentioned that how there's a place in the spiritual world where Radha Krishna is also worshipped in the Vedic Bhakti style as the king and queen of Vrindavan.
Ah, wow.
So that, like how if we are just on the platform of Vedic Bhakti, and we suppose we do that the whole life, then suppose, a devotee, develops bhav for Radha Krishna in Aishwarya actually, but then another devotee also develops bhav for them in Raganuga.
Yes.
That situation could happen, I guess. Not sure. So.
Yes, it could definitely happen. And one more thing I was thinking of is that the devotee who's who's on this path of prema, and that devotee is on one hand, we are aspiring for these things. Our desire should increase for these things. But on the other hand, their only desire is to serve the Lord. So the desire of service increases. And as we discussed last time in Bhava Bhakti, that there's certain qualities on these stages that we can imitate or feign, and there's others that we cannot. And the ones that we cannot are the ones that the devotee is using every moment in the service of the Lord. So one way that these stages are exhibited is by the intensity and amount of devotional service that the devotee is doing. So yes, like in the chat room, this is Sankhya Purvaka Namagana. Every day they're continuously chanting, so much chanting. They're doing so much service. They're writing books. They were establishing temples. So the Goswamis, they showed by example, they did everything. They established temples, they wrote books, and they did their chanting as well.
Okay, thank you, Prabhuji. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you for the nice comment. Thank you so much. Gopal Govinda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Prabhu, I'm just probably I missed that. Is there any structure of this different oceans and the waves? Is any some kind of hierarchical or some kind of a structure available we can refer?
Yes, that was in the beginning in the Waves of Devotion book. In the first chapter, like the overview, they gave the full structure there.
Okay.
The four directions of the ocean, and then the different waves in that ocean. So we have covered the eastern direction of the ocean, and that's the only one that we cover. And in this eastern, there's 4 waves. So yeah.
I'm not sure if I'm asking too much. Is it possible to give a little short overview of different oceans, their natures, and or maybe I can read somewhere if it is.
Yes, Prabhu. Maybe I just read the overview. It's given there in the Waves of Devotion.
The first
Very
chapter.
nicely. Yeah, just the first few pages of that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Prabhu. Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. It seems like there's no other questions now. So
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Sorry, can I just ask one clarification question?
Yes.
So Prabhu, we talked about, I think when Shama Kishori Mataji asked the question, I think Sri Sampradaya, we said, we talked about that, they do Vaidhi Sadhana Bhakti and their mood is Aishwarya versus, Gaudiya Vaishnava, they do Raganuga Bhakti and, aspire for the Kevala Prema. So, I mean, I don't know much about Sri Sampradaya or any other Sampradayas other than ISKCON. And, I don't want to plaster, but at the same time, I think Gaudiya Vaishnavas follow by the sadhana bhakti, and our standards of following these regulative principles are actually, kind of highest than anybody else. I mean, any other institution or sampradayas that at least I am aware of, they're not, I mean, there is a process of following by the sadhana bhakti, but they are not that strict. They don't follow that. So how would they actually, I mean, again, I don't have to say that, whatever I'm following is the best thing, but how is it possible for them to, follow whatever they're doing a little bit and, attain the love of Krishna?
So Krishna is present in all religions. So if they do it sincerely, then you have, like in Christianity, you have saints that have reached that level. We have more knowledge, we have more information, so it's easier for us. And also in the mood of the gopis is only possible in Lord Chaitanya's movement. But that, you could say, spontaneous love for God, that was like, Francis of Assisi, Lord Jesus Christ, by chanting the name of God, by serving God, by selflessly preaching, sacrificing themselves for God's will, they reached very high levels of spontaneous love. So it's possible in other sampradayas. We just have to be following a bona fide spiritual master in that tradition, a bona fide process. And if we're following the bona fide process, then we will reach the goal.
Okay, Prabhuji. Thank you. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So I hope all of you have completed or almost completed all the homework. Once you've completed all the homework, then you can take the exam. So I will start working on that. I still have to write it. I still have to write the exam and then send it to your proctors. So I sent out a message on the WhatsApp group. I put an Excel sheet there. Even though I have everyone's proctor's name, some people have not continued. You are the special group. You've stayed on. You're completing it. So just to help me, maybe you can let's do this. That to help me, put your proctor's name there. If it's not there already, put it there, and put it in bold. So maybe just make it bold, so I know, okay, this is the new list. These are the people I need to send it to. And then I'll email it to your proctor, and then you set up a time with them. You take the exam just like last time, exactly the same. You take it from them and then email it back to me and to your proctor. Okay, so very simple. We'll keep it very simple, and just take your time to study, and I will send it, and then you can take it whenever you are ready. Okay. Prabhuji,
when is the next class and which book are you starting?
So the next book will be Nectar of Instruction, and we'll start as soon as I get the exam written, which will be like in maybe 2 weeks, or I think 2 to 3 weeks we'll start again. I'll post it on the WhatsApp. I don't know exactly right now, but I'll post the new start date for Nectar of Instruction. So
Prabhuji, the dates to take the exam, the window is September 10th through September 20th?
Yeah, unless you need an exception, I can make exceptions. people have their, it really doesn't matter to me. I'll send it to your proctor. Just you have to get it done sooner than later.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Yes. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Thank you so much.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Dandavat pranam. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Hare
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.